Now and then, we do get a crisis call on the helpline. The individual tells us about the location that they are at, or they might already have a dangerous item with them. Hi, my name is Joel. I'm a social worker with Touch Community Services, and I've been in this industry for the past 10 years.
Hi, this is Clarise. I'm from SAMH as a counsellor for the past 8 years.
Today, we are going to talk about what it's like to be a crisis helpline responder in Singapore.
What does this gachapon remind you of?
A lot of toys that we might have played in our childhood, just putting in the coins and waiting with anticipation and excitement for something to drop out.
I think it reminds me of something I or my clients can use for de-stressing.
So for crisis, we will define it as a situation where an individual has called in to let us know that he or she has an intention to take their own life.
There are also other kind of crises. This person might be very overwhelmed with emotions, and at that time they need someone there to support.
Crisis hotline responders, or therapists for that matter, have a saviour mentality. I can understand where some people might have this misconception. I think this is not something that all helpline responders we have in terms of that saviour mentality. In fact, we are very intentional in ensuring that we don't come across that way. Giving solution is not the main purpose of a person calling in.
Advice often don't go well with people. We all like to have a sense of control. When you give suggestions, it's like you're telling them what to do, and they will tell you, oh, I have heard this before. So they have actually heard a lot of advice and suggestions already. Counsellors make the best partners because they are always emotionally available. Well, sometimes counsellors also have their compassion fatigue. So they also might need people to listen, and if you think that they are going to be your counsellor, in the home environment, it is difficult. When you are with your loved ones, you tend to be more emotional.
I'm going to say this at risk of my wife not being too pleased. Sometimes she'll share something and then she'll go like, don't social work me, because I'm a social worker. But after being married for now, number of years, she actually is a little bit more appreciative of the kind of mellowed or measured approach sometimes that I take.
How do you turn off that work life?
So I think it's not about turning it off. I think it's about how can we bring it into as part of our life as well, because this is who we are. In 3 seconds, both of you shall name the first thing or lesson your training has taught you. Don't assume.
You need to have empathy. And listening skills are very important. It includes verbal and non-verbal. So you got to listen to the silence, the tone.
One of the lessons I learned is not to assume that we have got everything figured out. We think that we know the best because of a lot of past experiences that we might have had as well. But the reality is that everyone has a different perspective on how certain situations are or certain struggles are.
What happens when cases are against your personal values? For example, abortion, religion. I do have people who do not share the same values as I. My aim is to how can I help this person? It's not about values or differences. In order for the client to recover from the emotional pain, we need to see things from their perspective and not impose our values, which would cause more pain and having self-doubt.
What are some of the common misconceptions people have about your job? Everyone always asks, do you get paid? And there's this misconception that, as a social worker, as a counsellor, that we are all volunteers. We are in this because of a passion really to help. And so perhaps that's why a lot of people think that, hey, all of you are volunteers.
Some callers, they think that we are there for them all the time. So after office hours, we still have a lot of callers. They forget that we are also human beings. We need our rest time also. Have you seen the rise of calls these few years? I saw a rise in the calls, especially during the pandemic period. A lot of anxiety People were very stressed and also very anxious about their job.
We see a lot more calls because of that period of time. We are also seeing calls directly from individuals themselves. The stigma of calling in is also perhaps being reduced.
And I see quite a lot of young people calling in. The youngest, maybe 15, is mainly about stress in schoolwork, and they find that in the school situation, their friends would know that they have walked in to see the counsellor. Sometimes they prefer to come to a helpline, which is they can be anonymous.
There is this one call that I can remember. The other person actually responded to say that, is it okay if my friend sits in on the call with me and she can share on my behalf? I said, sure, you can have your friend sit in with you. And I later found out that the individual was a 12-year-old student. And that eventually led to them receiving counselling support from us as well. Have you ever had to call the police or ambulance for a caller? Every now and then, we do get a crisis call on the helpline. In some of those situations, we have had to call an ambulance. I think we make that call when the threat to life is very evident. For example, the individual tells us about the location that they are at, or they might already have a dangerous item with them. One of the things that we would always ask as well is for them to share with us their location so that we are able to bring the services to them if they need it.
What is the toughest period in your job?
Maybe it's the toughest part of the job, I would say case notes. No, I'm just kidding. But I think the toughest part was when I first started out and I had to answer a call in Mandarin. I think the initial first few calls, I really struggled to find the words to communicate empathy, to show that I understand, all in Mandarin.
What are the keywords that you have learned?
我了解你在说的是什么。My grandma is going to be so upset with me. How do you dissociate yourself with the calls you receive for self-preservation, yet get involved in their stories or situations to connect with your clients?
I think this is also related to detachment, right? Detachment is not being unfeeling or disrespectful. We try not to be enmeshed with the client's issues.
So out of working hours, I definitely try not to do anything related to counselling. Listening to some of my favourite music, playing my Xbox or spending time with my children.
Throughout your journey, what was your proudest moment? I wouldn't say that there's a proudest moment. There are occasions, many occasions, I feel very gratified. When they call back, they say, the last time you spoke to me, I felt so much better.
Again, it's not about the proudest, but I think the most heartwarming or memorable case I can remember was when there was this call that I received from the mom about a lot of behavioral issues that the child, who was only 8 years old, was experiencing. We discovered in the midst of the counselling that his misbehaviors were because he really wanted his mom to be more present in his life. And when mom started to do more of these activities with him, their relationship grew so much more, So for me, it is heartwarming because I get to see the family really coming together to know what the child's needs are so that the child can thrive and grow as best as he can. Being a counsellor in Singapore is tough, because Singaporeans are very closed up with their feelings and emotions. I think this is also another misconception. Growing up, a lot of times we are taught, sometimes you keep your feelings to yourself. But I think as we grow as well, we learn that talking about feelings is actually very important. If you always store all your feelings up in the bottle, it will eventually be like a fizzy can, right? And it will come out because all the different traumas or difficult experiences causes you to shake that can until it just explodes. Maybe perhaps to all the counsellors or social workers out there, it's about persevering, taking that time to build that relationship and that rapport with your client, and then giving them that space to open up and share.
What's the first piece of advice you would go to this person?
Deep breathing. Put the hand at the tummy. You breathe in 1, 2, 3, and then you breathe out 1, 2, 3, 4.
One of the things that we can do is to ensure that we are always taking care of our mental well-being on a consistent basis. For mental health, we need to approach it differently. It's more like exercising. You need to constantly do some of these activities. So ensuring that you have enough self-care activities, making sure that you spend time with your family to build up your emotional support as well. I think these are very important steps that anyone can take. At any point, if you recognize, I think maybe I'm really struggling with this, I'm not doing too well, then to not be afraid to let somebody that you trust know.
Thank you for watching this episode of For Real, For Real.
If you like this video, do drop a like, comment and subscribe.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye!